Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the final session. I would say we've saved the best to last, but it's been so good all day, I don't think I can say that, but it's going to be just as good in the final session as it was for the rest of the day. So the panel's called Future-Proofing the BIC Plus, and I'm delighted to have 4 wonderful panelists with me, and we're also going to have 3 video statements. So we have a broad and an international input to this final panel, and I think they're really 2 of the key words I'm taking away from today. We need a broad coalition, and we really need to work across borders, because if it was 400 years ago, I think John Donne said, "No man is an island." Well, that is certainly true 400 years later, when no man is an island online, that's for sure. So I would invite my 4 panelists to briefly introduce themselves to you, starting with...
Hi everyone, my name is Billy and I am from Ireland. I am 18 years old and I am a youth advisory group member.
And?
Hi, I'm Rodrigo from Brazil, the Brazilian Safer Internet Center that's running the Brazilian helpline, hotline, and awareness node.
Hi, I'm Debbie from Luxembourg. I'm the coordinator of the Safer Internet Center Luxembourg.
Hello, my name is Josiane Galia Barron, and I'm a part of the business engagement and child rights team at UNICEF.
Great, thank you all very much. So a wonderful panel. And I'm going to start with a nice, easy, but quick, short, snappy question for you. I know it's a difficult one, though, because I want you to mention 1 key takeaway that you're going to take home with you from today's sessions so far. So, can we start with you, Billy?
Of course. So, after an impeccably fruitful day, I believe that my main takeaway anyway is that we, the young people, are the absolute future of the internet. The BIC Plus strategy is a step in the right direction, and it is so forward, but it cannot end here. We need to continue to have young people's voices heard when making decisions both in industry and in government. In a world that with ever-changing technology and online services, it is us, the young people, who are affected. And it is us, the young people, who know how to make the right decision and move in the right direction. And I'm not just speaking of us young people here today who are on the advisory group or on the youth panel, but I'm speaking of every young person in Europe. Because at the end of the day, it is us that want to make the change, and we intend to make the positive change in the world with or without you.
Oh, I think I've heard that before today. Very well said, Billy. Well done. So that's one hard act to follow, Rodrigo, but I'm afraid...
Yeah. It's hard to make better, but yeah, for us, it's really inspiration. And it really means that the multi-stakeholder approach with meaningful youth participation works. And this is, for me, a really good takeaway.
Yeah, definitely. Debbie.
What she said, what he said. Really, and I was talking to some of you in preparation of the session, and I heard everything everybody was saying. It is a meaningful youth participation. Can we have this every year? And can we share our thoughts equally, just like we did today?
Very good. And over to you.
I'm absolutely blown away by the energy and the competence and the conviction of the young people. Thank you so much. I feel really inspired by what I heard today. But I think one tidbit that I think has come up a lot and is not necessarily new, but I was really inspired to hear of the different examples that the young people were bringing up about how we always talk about online and offline are the one and the same. We have to look at offline systems, and the number of times that offline systems and services came up in the conversations really brought that home. So I'm thinking about that a lot.
Good. I think we've all got a lot of food for thought from today's meeting. So thank you all for your key takeaway. I think we're now going to have our first video statement, which is from Marie Ennemark-Olsen, a director at LEGO. So I hope that's right. And let's play the video.
Hi everyone, thank you for inviting the LEGO Group to be part of this year's Safer Internet Forum. My name is Marie Ennemark-Olsen and I lead the LEGO Group's responsible child engagement team. This year, the LEGO brand is celebrating 90 years of inspiring generations of children through play and the endless creative possibilities of the LEGO brick. While the brick remains the core of our business, children today are digital natives and love playing across digital and physical worlds. Innovation in digital play is a cornerstone of the Lego Brain vision, driven by our belief that the online environment has the potential to positively enrich children's lives when we deliver age-appropriate, nurturing experience where safety is embedded in the design. Our promise to children begins with creating a safe environment, but extends far beyond that to provide them also with fun and empowering experiences. We work with numerous partners, such as UNICEF, to promote children's rights across our operations and to inspire business to act responsibly towards children. We welcome the Better Internet for Kids strategy and applaud everyone's efforts and children's active participation in securing its success. I think we can all agree to the importance of focusing on identifying, assessing, and mitigating the risk of online harm to children. There remains a lot to be done, though. But given the increased importance of digital technology in children's lives, I believe we all have a responsibility to develop a more thoughtful approach towards achieving a positive digital innovation. And by this, I mean a type of innovation that meaningfully anchors the understanding of children's rights and well-being at the center of its design. At the European Union, I believe you're well placed to move this agenda forward globally with the Better Internet for Kids strategy. To do so, I see three immediate actions. Firstly, we need to achieve a common understanding of what well-being actually means and why it's so important to look at children's rights, protection, and well-being when we design and innovate for children. Secondly, governments and policymakers should commit to enabling and incentivizing to all stakeholders to invest and design a digital future with priorities which prioritizes children's well-being. And thirdly, continue to build consensus around the complexity of the online environment and the collective responsibility and collaboration that is needed across all stakeholders to ensure that children can benefit from digital opportunities. At the Lego Group, we believe we must all secure richer safeguards across our services and products, but we must not stop there. Children expect us to build safe products in a way that enables them to also access the positive benefits of technology, such as being connected with others or having the sense of belonging. We look forward to continue designing the digital environment for children and with children, and are committed to working with all of you to bring this reality to Europe's digital decade. Thank you again, and I wish you a fruitful discussion.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. That's a very... So, Josiane, if I can turn to you. I mean, there was a lot in that statement from Lego. Fun, opportunities, digital well-being. We heard Jacob say this morning how, despite all the challenges of being online, he felt he'd found his family online as well, as was referred to there, this being connected and feeling at home. Could you say something about your work on digital well-being? Also, how you see that connection with industry and their responsibilities, the collective responsibility that was mentioned, and what are your priorities for children in this area? Thanks.
Thank you so much for the question. I think it'd be useful to start by reflecting a little bit on the past as we look forward to future-proofing the Big Plus strategy. So this is a year of 10th anniversaries. It's 10 years since the first European strategy for a better internet for kids. But this year at UNICEF, we're also celebrating the 10th anniversary of the children's rights and business principles. So we've really taken a lot of effort to reflect on how far we've come, and hopefully that will inform the road ahead. And of course, this is a part of a wider tapestry of responsible business conduct across all sectors, and the children's rights and business principles themselves, although only 10 years old, don't have an explicit mention of digital technologies. We've seen such a rapid evolution over the last few years and so many critical milestones, ones that we've come up a lot today, like COVID-19, and of course, General Comment 25, that give us a lot of food for thought. So for those of you who don't know, the CRBPs, they articulate how companies building on the CRC, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights can embed child rights through their activities. And so when we think about how have the last 10 years played out and where are we now, we certainly recognize there's been many, many fantastic examples of good practice from individual companies, from associations, also from investors, and platforms that are really inspiring and shine a light to how to further build on these initiatives. But we also have looked to some, for example, industry benchmarks that have tried to use publicly available information to say how is industry doing right now. And I'll just mention a couple of these examples just to paint a picture globally of how the industry is doing. For one example, the World Benchmarking Alliance did an inaugural digital inclusion benchmark in 2020 that found that only 16 out of 100 companies assessed demonstrate a high-level commitment to child online protection. The 2022 Global Child Forum Tech and Telecom Deep Dive found that while 64% of companies they assessed had a general policy on product safety, only 20% specifically mentioned children, and they find this overall discrepancy between policy and commitment at a company level versus reporting and actual implementation and resulting impact, with some differences across industries. Another more recent example, UNICEF Australia and Ethical Partners released a benchmarking exercise of companies listed on the Australian Securities Exchange, which found that less than 3% of companies disclose they have measures in place to protect children in relation to digital services, and not a single company discloses they have a specific data privacy standard for children. So these findings paint a general picture and give us an impression of the road that there is to be traveled in the next 10 years and beyond. But of course, there's a huge cause for optimism. We have General Comment 25 that provides a North Star about what can be done, and it mentions also what should be done in relation to business as well. It mentions child rights due diligence and the importance of impact assessment, this process of companies really being able to know and show that they respect human rights, including children's rights. And lots of other ingredients are not news to us. We've been talking about them all day, things like by design approaches, having evidence about what works that's informed by children, ensuring that all companies, not only child-directed companies, are living up to these standards, and needing to continuously remain up to speed as technology evolves. But I want to close by adding on this more forward-looking and challenging ourselves to do better in the future, by focusing on this concept of well-being and dovetailing on the previous speaker. Translating the concept of well-being into concrete actions, of course, requires a lot of research and efforts to actually translate what we actually mean. And with that, there is a new project called the Responsible Innovation and Technology for Children project, which was launched this year, all RITEC. It was co-founded by UNICEF and the LEGO Group, funded by the LEGO Foundation, and implemented with a huge number of amazing organizations around the world. And what this aims to do is to develop a framework that actually maps how the design of children's digital experiences affects their well-being, and how to provide guidance on informed design choices that can promote positive well-being outcomes. And when we talk about this, we're not only talking about the absence of harm, but actually being able to make a positive additional contribution and additional value. So we've done an interim sort of well-being framework built with among other things, the views from 300 children from across 13 countries who told us about how perspectives on well-being should be understood and reflected in digital experiences, especially play. And the things that came out of this are words that we've been hearing throughout our conversations today, things like safety and security as being critical to well-being, as well as emotional regulation, diversity, equity and inclusion, empowerment, and more. So the vision of this is really that we'd see all companies in the future designing digital experiences that are accessed by children to carefully consider and evaluate how these experiences impact their well-being, and add a layer of clarity and a common language around what we mean by this term. And we invite everybody to follow us and join us on this journey. It will be an ongoing project for the coming months. Thank you,
Thank you very much, Josiane. And that really is a very valuable piece of work, and something I'm sure everyone in this room is paying attention to. And if you didn't know about it before, the abbreviation is RITEC, R-I-T-E-C, yes. And it's certainly something we're going to be bearing in mind. So, time for our second video, this time from TikTok, to give us a bit of an industry perspective from a slightly different demographic than LEGO.
So what are our priorities for the future? Well, we believe the right tech solutions can be powerful tools for enforcement to operate at scale. Technology can help companies like ours better detect and remove abuse from the platform. But the reality is that technology for trust and safety purposes is still quite nascent. That's why it must be paired with the expertise of safety professionals responsible for developing and implementing forward-looking policies and processes. For instance, age-appropriate policies ensure that teens are introduced to technology safely. They span from age assurance to giving teens tools to tailor their online experiences. TikTok has a series of age-appropriate safety elements built into the platform. These include restricting access to direct messaging and setting the accounts of teens aged 13 to 15 to private by default. We strive to use our position as a newer platform to innovate as we look to solutions to long-standing industry problems. But of course, we cannot do this alone. That's why we value the work with industry experts, NGOs, and parents' associations to share best practices, create programs, and exchange ideas. We hope that broader industry initiatives, such as the ongoing work on the EU Code of Conduct on Age-Appropriate Design, will become an industry benchmark for the future. We also know teens want to be heard, and we're working with youth safety organizations like Internet Matters to co-create solutions with young people. We have resources on digital safety suitable for all ages to help them and parents learn about digital safety. So there is no finish line with safety, and events like the Safer Internet Forum are extremely valuable for us to exchange best practices and learn about ways to improve our policies and practices to better protect young people. Thank you all for listening and wishing you a wonderful time.
So I'm going to come to Debbie. Sorry, save the applause for the end. So we've heard just then from TikTok and previously obviously from Lego and from UNICEF. Coming back down to the ground as you see it in a Safer Internet Centre in Luxembourg, do you see that the public sector and private industry are moving together or moving in the right direction, or do you still see gaps, or what's your assessment of the situation?
Well, working now in this field for over 13 years, I really see that there's a big progress going on, but we're still not there. This is obvious. So while we are not there, it is very important to have the work of the Safer Internet Centers, so there's a point of contact for everyone, for children and everyone around children to turn to get information, to get support, and also to report harmful and illegal content that is there. Besides that, it's very good to see that the big players and all the other players on the internet really now do and also have to make an effort to have the child best interest in mind. But I think we all know that this will really take a while, and it's really good to have the conversation like this also in the past Safer Internet Forums, and I hope also in the future to have a close exchange and really with the expertise that we have here sitting in the room, really co-create and shape it in a good way in the child best interest. But there's still a long way to go, but we see that the train is moving, at least for me, faster than before, and this is very good to see.
Oh, it's really encouraging. Thank you, Debbie, for that. And moving straight to you, Rodrigo. So we're absolutely delighted to have you here as a representative of what we call SIC+, so Safer Internet Centres outside the EU who are supported by the network and have the opportunity to come to events like this. Yeah, what's the situation of young people in Brazil and maybe even Latin America, if you want to extrapolate further? Are the issues there really similar to those that you've heard being discussed today, or are they very different? And a particular question, we heard a young voice from Brazil this morning in the open videos talking about lack of access, really, and lack of basic skills. I'd be really interested to know what you're doing in Brazil to tackle what we refer to in Europe as this digital divide, to make sure that the technology, that all young people can enjoy the opportunities that technology brings, and not just that it sort of entrenches the existing inequalities. So a few questions for you, please, over to you.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's a really pleasure to participate as an outside Europe country. Yeah, and to start responding, it's important to say that it's really hard to talk about diversity and represent a country such as Brazil or even the region. And we are always trying to make this point because it's really hard to bring in such a small speech this holy challenge of diversity in a country, and even more in a region such as Latin America, for example. So it's really nice to have this chance. And we have a really big challenge. We have some similar issues, such in Europe. But for example, in Brazil, we have more than 22 million children online. But it means more than 93% of children are online in Brazil. But 80% of more vulnerable children only use by cell phones, only have this mobile phone with limited access to the internet for paid access. This is totally different access. So how to know more this diversity inside the country to make this happen, more opportunities and the policies. And we don't have a big policy. We started to cooperate with InSafe Network in 2009. It was a safer internet program, maybe. And it's really inspiring to see that kind of policies in the region. We don't have that in Brazil. SaferNet is running as an NGO, a non-profit NGO, and we don't have any fund from the government. And we are trying to keep it happen. And just to say also that pandemic shows that the inequalities was deepened. But at the same time, you have people who was helping the families, for example, to access money from the emergency, money from the pandemic issue. So even if they don't have schools as a focus point for media literacy or even digital citizenship, neither for internet access, they have a creativity, they have to deal with this challenge. So it's really inspiring to see how people in vulnerable groups have to make it happen anyway, even if without public policies. And we have seen also our reports on our hotline increasing. Child sexual abuse keeps on the top, but hate crimes is increasing a lot in Brazil, especially in this election period. You probably are knowing about that, all these democracy issues. And at the same time, the vulnerable groups are enjoying the opportunities of the internet to create things, to create enterprise, to create social groups and to mobilize and try to keep this movement of the opportunities. And just to say that it's really challenging for us to make it happen because we have good laws, we have some bills, good bills, but we don't have this kind of implementation policies and this kind of implementation budget to make it happen in everyday life. So this is, for me, a big challenge. And that's why it's so important multi-stakeholder approach, and that's why we really like this moment at Safer Internet Forum and all SIC Plus program, because it's inspiring us to keep working and also working with some companies to implement these things. But for me, just to say that there are many, many translation issues, not only language translation, but technology translation, policy translation. This is all well-being and good practices translated to the real life of people that are hungry, people that don't have schools, and how in Brazil, for example, we can include these all well-being, digital well-being issues, media literacy, digital literacy, at the same time when we have really, really basic needs, but we can't wait these basic needs to work. This is the kind of challenge that in the region we have yet not only the access, but a meaningful access with digital citizenship and also well-being from the beginning. That's why this multi-stakeholder approach is so important, and a more global approach because we are using the same platforms in general.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much, and a lot of food for thought for us there in terms of similarities also in some member states. You know, Europe isn't homogenous. It's not one size fits all for all the member states. And I heard some similar points to what you were saying of, you know, people in real socioeconomic difficulty, and how can we get them the skills so that they can benefit from the opportunities and then actually get better jobs and get better pay and so on. So we've toured the world before we come back to you, Billy, and we're really going to tour the world because we're going to go down under. We're now going to go to Australia and have a statement from Julian Munn-Grant, the e-safety commissioner herself. So can we play the last video, please?
Hello everyone, I'm Julie Inman-Grant, and I'm Australia's eSafety Commissioner. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak at the Safer Internet Forum. And congratulations on launching the European Strategy for a Better Internet for Kids earlier this year. There are few more noble pursuits than giving our children a chance to enjoy their childhood. And as we all know, their lives are increasingly being lived online. As fellow advocates for children's rights online, we at eSafety applaud how Better Internet for Kids will make digital environments safer for children. We here in Australia have a unique model that focuses on all of our citizens. It is our job to help prevent harms from happening in the first place, to protect people when things do go wrong, and to seek proactive and systemic change to make the online world safer now and into the future. I see strong synergies between Better Internet for Kids and what we do here in Australia. For example, we are delighted to see the proposal for a new code of conduct on age-appropriate design. This aligns not only with our work on broader efforts around safety by design, but also our work with industry on age assurance. It also parallels our work with industry as they develop mandatory codes to protect children from harmful online content and contact. We look forward to sharing insights with the European Commission as it develops measures on age assurance and age verification. We also commend your focus on increasing children's participation in the digital environment and giving them a say in the development of digital policy. In April of this year, we appointed our own Online Safety Youth Advisory Committee to give young people a voice in shaping the internet of the future, their internet. In return, we get a fresh perspective about online safety from Australians aged 13 to 24. Research says it's this age group that will be at the sharp end of the new and emerging tech trends. Trends that see us careening into the metaverse, a metaverse which is marketed to children. Augmented and virtual reality and a world of headsets with sensors, haptic suits, and all manner of hyper-realistic experiences. Experiences that will blur the lines between what is real and what is not, but seemingly without significant safety guardrails. So what could possibly go wrong? Most likely, an escalation of the harassment, exploitation, and hate speech we see today, with online assault that will feel even more real than it does today. That is why safety by design is so critical, that the architects of the metaverse are assessing potential safety risks today and building the protections in now, not retrofitting after the damage has been done. And while we each work to protect our own citizens at home, it is by working together that we will set global standards. Together, we will demonstrate to the world's most influential tech companies that the safety of their users, all of our citizens, should be their first order of business. That is why initiatives like Safety by Design, the Digital Services Act, and Better Internet for Kids are so critical. We have been so pleased to hear the same echoes of commitment to online safety from Commissioners Breton and Johansson and across the European Commission. And it is why global forums like these are essential to building the online environments we all want and deserve, particularly for our most vulnerable, our children. Keeping children safe, giving the skills and confidence to plunge into the online world with the exuberance of their youth, allowing them to become responsible digital citizens. These are the reasons our organizations exist. But our challenges transcend national borders. As more jurisdictions join Europe and Australia in establishing online safety regulations, international cooperation will be vital. When it comes to a safer internet for kids, we will be limited if we work alone. But together, we can change their world for the better. Thank you.
It's always inspiring to hear from Julian Munn-Grant. I'm very grateful for that. So, Billy, you heard that they've been inspired by us and set up their own youth panel. So, as our youth representative, are we looking at the right issues? You know, you've heard a lot today, and have the actions that you've heard about today, do they seem on target to you? Do you think we're going in the right direction? And how can we tell if they're going to make a difference?
Well, I definitely think they are the right issues to be looking at. something that was mentioned in the video that we just watched were the words protect, prevent, and seek change, which, in my opinion anyway, links very closely to Big Plus's strategy, the pillars of Big Plus's strategy: protect, empower, and respect. It is so vital that young people are protected online by adults, whether that be their parents, their educators, stakeholders, or industry members. When it comes to age assurance, harassment, or even exploitation online, all issues mentioned in the video, it is predominantly us, the young people, who are affected, and so hence it is absolutely imperative that panels composed of youth members, like the ones seen here today, are included when looking at the future of the internet. It was briefly mentioned safety by design in the video, and coincidentally, actually, it's a topic I feel quite strongly about. So to me, anyway, it is bizarre that when somebody sets up a social media account, it is by default the most public possible settings. And you'd be surprised how many young people are completely unaware of this, and that their account is potentially much too public for their own liking and for their own safety. And in my opinion, where the issue lies for this is that young people who are less experienced about online safety, say ages 13, 16, they're less likely to be educated about it. And honestly, I don't believe this comes down to education. I think this falls to industry to prevent. It is the industry's responsibility to protect their users, and it's an issue that needs to be dealt with within industry. If it is one thing I could advocate for when changing the online world, it would be safety by design, as I believe it is an absolute necessity in order to create a safer and more inclusive online world. And this is just one of the many examples of how we as a community can move forward in the right direction. I also believe, and maybe this is controversial, that in order to make stuff like this happen, whether that be age assurance or safety by design, we have to go through governments, because governments are the people that can ensure that legislations are passed in order to ensure the safety of their users and make sure it is done in a responsible manner. To go on from that then, you mentioned about how do we make sure change does occur from this, and I think it boils down to three main ideas: discussion, awareness, and growth. I think it is essential when trying to create a safer online world to continue constant discussion about internet safety and relevant topics with both young people, stakeholders, industry, educational areas, family, everyone. Everyone needs to be involved in these conversations. And then this leads me on to awareness. Awareness cannot stop after events like this. This is an amazing event, but we need to continue awareness after this. And we need to go the whole way down to young children, from 6 to 8. Because I believe, anyway, that it is the younger you give awareness to young children, the higher the probability of having internet-wise adults in the future. But in order for awareness to be effective, it needs to lead to action. And in continuing from that, action needs to lead to result. There is a famous saying, and it says, "Talk without action is a pointless activity." And then last, but most definitely not least, I believe growth plays a constant role in this. And as the internet grows so rapidly, we too, and our campaigns, need to grow in direct proportion. As well as growth as a community, we all need to grow personally as well. I find that we tend to blame industry and governments and education for everything that we find online. And whilst everyone holds a certain amount of responsibility, we too have to hold responsibility for our own actions online and our own morals. And in order for us to create a safer online world, we all need to grow as people and as a community.
Thank you very much. Powerful words. Thank you, and you gave me the exact right lead into my last question to the panel, so maybe we'll go this way round again. I'd like one final reflection from each of you, please, exactly on what Billy was saying. So how do we move from policy to practice, from those words into actions so that it makes a difference, either at EU level or globally? What's next?
So I can think it's relevant. We're talking about practice, and if I can offer a global perspective and a few thoughts and insights from UNICEF's own programming on child online protection. at a national level around the world. So the context for this is, as we know, there's been a very rapid uptake of digital technologies in many low and middle income countries, and this has not been accompanied by the legislation, the infrastructure and education that's required to ensure its safe use. And at the same time, child protection and justice systems in many contexts are severely constrained. So that means that children are at heightened risk and may be unable to access those quality services and remedies if they do experience harm. So UNICEF's working to address these challenges around the world. Our country programs support governments to build comprehensive national responses in terms of the actions. And what does a comprehensive approach include? Of course, updating legislation, improving criminal justice and victim services, carrying out educational and prevention programming with children and young people, parents and caregivers, professionals that work with children and the wider community at large, and convening multi-sectoral action, of course, including industry. And all that underlied by sustained investment in building these systems. And the considerations that underpin all this, we've discussed. Data to inform national laws and policies and strategies and programs, need to facilitate meaningful engagement of children and young people in all contexts where we're doing this work. The recognition that while technology solutions are important, there are no silver bullets. And with the transnational nature of the issue, cross-border collaboration, of course, remains a critical ingredient in all of this.
Thank you very much, and we're very happy to continue our cross-border collaboration with UNICEF through thick and thin. So Debbie, can I ask you the same question?
Yes, I am very fascinated about her speech when she was talking about sharing responsibilities. And I really think, yes, it's exactly this. Everybody has a responsibility, and we need to talk to each other to see what are the ranges of the specific responsibilities, because I think everybody is aware about that they are responsible, but how do we manage it and how do we put it into practice? This is exactly why we really need to be in touch between all the bubbles that exist that can contribute to shape the internet in a better way, and also to empower the children to use it in a positive way, and also empower the carers who are there to support the children. So yes, it's really about shared responsibility, and also continue to raise awareness about issues that need to be addressed. And this is really a constant thing where we really need to put energy. Yeah.
So good luck going back to Luxembourg and continuing that. And Rodrigo, as you head back to Brazil, are there any things that you've been inspired by today's conference to do differently or to do more of?
Yeah, for sure. And for sure, the shared responsibility with youth groups, we are really confident that we are on the right way, because we are in this, 3 years ago, we started a youth program, but it's not a panel, but it's youth groups trying to scale awareness raising and digital citizenship education. They are building the program with us, and they are creating, and all the participants as youth panel are now project managers and are assuming more responsibilities inside SaferNet. So we are glad to do that with Meta and also with other partners. UNICEF also and Violence Funds can support many great initiatives. And just to say that, again, translation issues, I think it's important, and also the scale, not only in the country, but companies are always talking about scale, but when you talk about market, it's one thing, but well-being in scale, safety in scale, it's another issue, because equity, maybe it's important for me, for this kind of translation from policy to practices, and translation with equity, and also respecting this kind of huge diversity. It's really challenging, but it's possible when we work together in this different stakeholders approach. So, yeah, really inspired about your work. Just to say that this kind of coordination that you have in Europe, and this big plus strategy, and it's making a totally difference, because in countries such as Brazil, you have some policies, but they are fragmented, they are different ministries, and sometimes there are some conflicts, and this kind of coordination is really inspiring to other countries, probably.
Well, that's really nice to hear from us, that there's something that we are inspiring beyond the borders. That's good to know. So, Billy, last but definitely not least, would you like to share final thoughts? What can we do? Words to actions.
Thank you, June. So like mentioned countless times over today's event, it is important that this movement is based around children. Someone over the last 3 days of preparation said something to me, and I actually haven't stopped thinking about it since. They said perhaps instead of just having internet safety youth panels, we could have industry youth panels. They could put us at the heart, at the very centre of their decision making. You see, as a young person, I find the most predominant issue to be that industry often creates meetings with young panellists, somewhat pretending to listen to us, simply just ticking a box in their agenda, and nothing we ever say is truly considered. Putting us at the heart of industry would minimise that problem. Despite being your largest consumers, we aren't heard and nor are we listened to. And at the end of the day, industry, you need us a lot more than we need you. We can survive as young people without social media, but social media can't survive without us. Take the Safer Internet Forum, for example. It is the perfect example of true involvement of young people and how positive can come out of that. We have been at the heart and soul of this event, and in return for that, good and real change will come out of today. Along with allowing your digital users to have an impact on decisions through possibly digital polls or surveys, I believe that we can truly change the future as young people, one online issue at a time.
Very inspiring. I should have really given you the last words. So thank you very much. Can we have a quick round of applause for our panel, please? So, very inspiring youth participation right to the end, and I'm glad you feel you were heard and you were at the heart of the forum, because that was certainly our intention. And I think if anyone online or in the room did enter the room with any doubts or skepticism about the value of having young people involved, those doubts will be well out of the window and blown away, I think, because today has been a fantastic event. And the feedback I've heard is this has been the best Safer Internet Forum ever, and we should definitely do it again to have a youth-led thing. So thank you for that. Now, I have 2 announcements to make before I go into my final remarks. First of all, for those of you lucky enough to be in the room, there is a reception immediately afterwards outside. I don't know if we'll have waffles again, but we'll have something delicious, I'm sure. And in the spirit of greening the Commission, this is greening the Safer Internet Forum, those of you who have badges on still, you can dispose of the badges, the physical badges, in a little box by the staircase, and you can hand back your lanyard, this white thing, and they will be recycled, we promise. So please, I mean, obviously if you want it as a souvenir, we're not going to force you, but if you want to recycle it, you know, don't put it in the bin, put it in the box. Thank you, please don't forget. So that was the easy bit, because trying to sum up all my impressions for today is really, I think, too much. So I'm not really going to try. I'm going to try and just say a few words. First of all, of thanks, really warm thanks. Now, to our online audience, I do hope if we have a question, yes, we do have a question going to our online audience. And I was going to say we've neglected you, so this is our 1 mark. Carl, an online question, please.
Yeah, thanks, June. I think it's a really good one that you're going to be pleased about. It's from Uta Navidi, who many of you will know, and she says, what do panel members think would need to happen to make the Safer Internet Forum in 10 years' time unnecessary?
Ooh, good question. So, who should we pick on? Debbie, let's pick on you to answer that one.
A miracle? No, but at best, the internet and the technologies are at the child's best interests, and everybody knows how to use it in a proper and safe way. And we are still in discussion all the time and exchange how to keep this, because technology will advance. Then yes, it would be nice not to have the necessity of safer internet centers. But let's see if that will be in 10 years or not.
Yeah. And I think also someone said today, this is this is what's endless work. There is no finish line, because just as teachers keep on teaching, even as children grow and learn and move on, there's always the next generation. And in this evolving world, there's always new risks as well as the old risks. And so perhaps we'll still have to have a safer internet forum, but I would really like cyberbullying not to be the top topic going into the helplines. And if we can make some sea change, make a big different change there, that I think is one thing we could definitely judge as a success factor for ourselves. We have very little time. If there's one question in the room, I'll take one question in the room. Go on then. Ian from our age verification project.
Thanks. I'm not going to talk about EU consent or age verification. I used to work for a gambling charity, and all the gambling operators in the UK used to give us just 0.1% of their turnover to help us treat people with a gambling addiction. Do you think that might be a good way to assure the future of the Safer Internet Forum by asking the large platforms to do the same for you guys?
Interesting. Isn't there something like that in Brazil? Or am I mistaking that? Is there a levy on like internet sites in Brazil that goes towards internet charities?
Not exactly the same.
Not. It's a very good idea, Ian. We will definitely take it back and think about it. No promises. Yes, so final remarks this time, final remarks. And I did want to say thank you to all the online audience who've been bearing with us. I do hope that you felt involved, even if we couldn't take very many questions or interact with you. What I can reassure everyone, online or in the room, is that we've harvested all the results from all the chats around the table, so whether around the table or around the virtual table. And I and my team will be studying those also with EUN to really, benefit from the expertise that's in the room, as well as the energy that's been in the room today. There have been some really fascinating discussions, and we're really going to go back home, go back to Luxembourg, go back to Brussels, and think that through and really examine those in detail. So your input is really, really appreciated, and especially I want to say thank you to the organisers who have just worked miracles today. How you do so many online groups, as well as so many groups around the table with flawless organisation, except for people like me saying, what table? What? Can't read that. Oh, where is it? Allowing for the stupidity of adults as well to not be able to find a table that's got a big number on it. Fantastic organisation. Thank you very, very much. Yes. I think I should maybe say one takeaway for myself, which I hope applies to many of you in the room as well, and that is really the value of networks, old networks and new networks, old contacts and new contacts. For many of us, this is the first time we've been able to meet since COVID. It's been a joy and it's been a delight, and I'm glad we still have our online reach that gives us really hundreds of more people than we could possibly have fitted in this room or paid for waffles for. But it's been a real joy. But I think one of the challenges and one of the things that I want to sort of share with you is that we are always moving forward. In the Commission, we're trying to really increase the synergies across our efforts. So with our Safer Internet Centres, we now have new contacts with consumer centres, specifically to identify those commercial risks that certainly Sonia Livingston was talking about and some of the tables were talking about in the discussions today. We have, with our colleagues who are outside here from DG EAC, looking at education and culture, we are working with the member states to produce guidelines for teachers. So education is a member state responsibility, but we're working hard to try and give teachers the support across Europe to teach these difficult subjects, because we know some children really want more support from teachers. Informal education is a place for that, but the teachers need to be trained themselves. So we have guidelines already on, I'm going to forget these now, of course, artificial intelligence. I think there's disinformation, cyberbullying is coming up. So watch that space, and we will do our best to bring those two networks together also to complement each other. And also that all of us, I think, are going to be reaching out, perhaps in a more active way, to new contacts to be sure that we're reaching all the children in Europe. And that means really paying attention to children in all the different situations of vulnerability there are. Whether it's children with disabilities, and we've had some involved today through the online messages, and 2 years ago we had a great Safer Internet Forum really looking at that as a particular target group. but also children in migrant situations, children in poorer backgrounds, LGBTQ, Roma, so on. There are many children facing disadvantages in Europe today, and it's very important that we bring them into this virtuous circle of benefiting from the opportunities that technology brings, fitting them for those jobs of the future, and hopefully taking them out of poverty and giving them really the benefits of the digital decade. And I want to thank the Safer Internet Centres for all their sterling work, sterling with an E, not an I, all their good work for the last years in challenging situations, particularly through COVID when so much was online and the focus was really on them. However, the challenges that we face, I think it's safe to say, are nothing compared to the challenges faced by the children of Ukraine. And so I'd just like to close my remarks by saying a special thanks to our colleague, Miroslava Baranskova. I've probably said that totally wrong, in which case I do apologize. But Miroslava, thank you so much for traveling from Ukraine to be with us this week. I hope you know that the Safer Internet Centres, the network is there to support you as they've supported you this week and shared resources, shared support, shared practice. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts, really, for the work that you are doing in the most difficult situations. Really going, yes, please come. Now, I promised that I wouldn't make you say anything, but if you'd like to say a quick word about how you're working to deliver help to children, I'm very happy to give you my microphone. If you could tell everyone what you told me earlier about your work.
I would like to say that I'm very grateful for this opportunity to take part in this forum, and today I learned a lot about this sphere, about opportunities and some methods that I can use in my work, and being here is making me very happy, and I am sure that when I go back home I will use this information and try to help my colleagues, and I'm just very grateful for this, and I will use it in the future and try to help everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that certainly puts our work into context as So there are changes coming, of course. We have the metaverse around the corner, great opportunities, interesting challenges. And I want to end on a positive note, which is news I learned today. The Digital Services Act was published today in the official journal. Yay. So we will now be starting work on our code of conduct, and very much looking forward to bringing about the lasting change that our young people expect. And to give the very last word to our young people, Daria, could I invite you to take the podium, please, and to close the conference?
Thank you so much. Does this work? Yeah, okay.
Is it working?
Yeah, I think so. So, my name is Daria, and I'm part of the Big Youth panel. So in order to close today's event, we would like to express our gratitude for everybody's support in this project. So first of all, we'd like to thank every young person who played an active role in the planning and preparation of this year's forum. And I'm sure this was an inspiring opportunity for all of us to start exploring, protecting, empowering, and respecting children and young people online. We would also like to thank the people who made this possible. We couldn't have done this without you, and we see that you couldn't have done this without us. We really appreciate that you listened to us and to everything we said, our opinions, our suggestions, and also that you took some action about this. We really appreciate it. So if we can give a round of applause to our Safer Internet Center coordinators. So last but not least, we would like to thank all of the participants who are here in order to make a change on online safety and want to help us in making the internet a better place for everybody. So a round of applause for all of you as well. So again, thank you all so much for being here and for giving us the opportunity to express our opinions. And we hope everybody leaves this event with an optimistic view on the future. And I hope we will make a change with you, but we will do it anyway with or without you.
So, with that, I declare this year's Safer Internet Forum closed, but next year I hope it will definitely be with you again. So, the reception is outside. Thank you very much, everyone.